Hey everyone, welcome back. Joshua here. This is a look at disgust. That's what we're talking about today. Stay tuned. Cooked peas, dog shit, Donald Trump's hair. All of these things I find disgusting. For real. What does disgust do for us? It's a very, very interesting emotion and one I don't think very much gets its due. If you recall, all of my emotion videos have been talking about how there is a relationship to our emotions and to our values. Up to this point, all the values that we've spoken about, all emotions we've talked about, is in response to either wanting a value or trying to hold on to a value or trying to protect a value. Well, disgust flips this on its end. Disgust tells us about what we don't value. So first, the biological. It's very imperative to recognize that once again, every one of our emotions serves a purpose. And they serve purposes biologically / survival, and they also serve a purpose socially. All right, biologically, disgust keeps us safe, pretty much like all the other emotions. Disgust specifically keeps us safe in relation to what might be harmful to us. So example, you're a caveman and you're trotting down your trail and you haven't eaten in a day and you're starving and you see before you something that might actually be edible. And you trot over there, you're getting more and more excited, but the closer you get, the more you start smelling something rotten. And lo and behold, it is in fact rotten. Whatever this nasty thing is that once was edible is no longer. Our recoil of disgust, of revulsion, keeps us safe. Because if we in fact did eat that thing, we definitely get sick and potentially die. Disgust is quite literally in this sense a lifesaver. So these kind of examples, those that keep us from ingesting physically harmful things, pretty readily available. Now, cooked peas won't kill me, but I do seriously find them disgusting. And that's how we start getting to the more nuanced and interesting disgust experiences that we have through our own personality. If all of us liked the same thing, or all of us hated the same thing, we would quite literally be the same person. That's where personality comes in and is exceptionally interesting. With disgust, it is very much like bumpers on the bowling alley, I think I've used that example before, that tells us and kind of helps direct us along our path. And the path here is getting to know ourselves. In regards to disgust, we can find out what kind of behaviors, lifestyle, any kind of big social concept that you can think of steers us in the right direction. Most of us, I think the vast majority of us, want to be good people. Now what's interesting is there's no one right way to get to that place that says, "Ha-ha, I'm a good person." Well, with disgust, what it can do is lead you in the direction based on what doesn't work for you. Disgust will tell you when your version of kindness or someone else's version of kindness becomes enabling, for example. Or when someone else's tenacity and strength turns into bullying and meanness. Notice then that with disgust, when we recoil away from the experience that we've had, it tells us that's not what I want. Now, it may not be as dangerous as the rotten meat, but it certainly is just as indicative to tell us, I need to steer clear from that and move this direction. So when we don't access our disgust, what happens oftentimes is we just basically agree and go along with everything. What that ultimately leads to is a lack of sense of confidence and self-esteem and being exceptionally passive. We wind up not advocating for what it is that we want and need for us personally, for our own growth, maturation, experience, and so forth. Accessing disgust is actually a beautiful, beautiful way to say that version of being a politician or that version of being a mom or that version of being a whatever doesn't work for me. It's not right for me, and so I'm going to try something else. It actually cuts out all kinds of investigative time. If we know unequivocally that entertainment for us does not equal basket weaving, we won't go to the basket weaving store. No offense to you fellow basket weavers out there. If we do know that we find mental stuff's challenging, we might try Sudoku or puzzles or mindless board games. When we know what we like, we can lead ourselves in the direction that will get us what we want. If we don't know what we like, it's just going to take that much longer. My encouragement here is to really get to where we appreciate the disgust that we feel. It tells us something that is vital to our own growth and directionality. But the story does not end here, does it? Of course, with the emotion, there almost always is some story, some thought about it. Where disgust turns from something that is beneficial and actually wholesome, we enter into contempt. Now, what contempt is a combination of a feeling and emotion of disgust plus a value judgment that says that value shouldn't be. Now then, in order to understand contempt, all you have to do, you can stop the video, go elsewhere. You probably can come up with an example. Go anywhere on the internet. And unfortunately, I don't mean to sound flippant, but the experience of contempt in this world is ripe and rampant and easily found. All you have to do is find someone not only disagreeing with someone else's value, but vehemently disagreeing and also telling them the value that they value shouldn't be valued. A lot of value words there. This is where we get stuck. In contempt, we're not honoring our own personal experience and instead thrusting that personal experience out into the world and saying, this is the way it should be for everyone and everyone, amen. It just doesn't work that way. What contempt does is actually create divisiveness between people. Now, of course, I didn't talk about what happens when we have contempt for ourselves, but you can guess the exact same thing happens. When we have some revulsion, some disgusted feeling about some experience we have, specifically some thought or some other emotion, and then judge that thing as bad and wrong, well, we've just created contempt. And what contempt does is it matures into hate, and then eventually matures into that which is most debilitating. Lack of love. So with disgust, you can actually love the thing that you disgust, meaning you can appreciate that it doesn't work for you. You can appreciate that it exists. You can appreciate that other people like it. Cooked peas, for example. I don't know who likes dog shit. Someone out there does. But we can let it be what it is. We don't have to interfere with its existence anymore. But with contempt, we are constantly locked into a debate, into a nasty attachment with that thing, trying our utmost to pretend like or force it to not be. The problem with contempt ultimately is it creates space and distance between ourselves first and others second. Ultimately, the spiritual connection that we are meant to create and flourish in our lives goes by the wayside. So, how do you tell the difference between disgust and contempt? Very simply, it comes down to this. If you can be disgusted by something and still allow it to be, it's disgust. If on the other hand, you have this big, long, convoluted story about how that value that someone has shouldn't be, isn't good for you, for society, for them, for whatever, and actively work on trying to shun it, kill it, shape it into something else, then what you've got in your hands is contempt. The other big quick test is with disgust, revulsion, like other emotions, lasts very quickly. You see the gross thing, you hear the gross thing, you're connected to the gross thing, you feel gross, and then you move on. Contempt, on the other hand, latches on. It connects you to that thing indefinitely through your feeding of it through thoughts. So the most ironic thing is you do in fact find a thing disgusting, but you've connected to it in a way that you can't unleash it. You can't let it go. Going back to my dog shit thing, it's very much like stepping in it and not being able to get it off your shoe. It's gone from contempt to pissed off that it was there to begin with. How dare it be there? Contempt, then, is emotional dog shit. Didn't think I would say that, but there you go. So, as with all of these emotions, learn to connect with the visceral experience of it. Know that it is something, that it's telling you something that is beneficial and wholesome, and move on. If you find yourself in your head telling yourself a story about that thing, you've created something that is just going to keep you longer away from that peace and security that you're shooting for. Take care.